Elias Vorn didn't flinch as the poison scorched through his veins. He just stared at the alien delegation, eyes sharp as broken glass, voice steady enough to shake worlds. "You call us unstable," he rasped, blood trailing from his lips. "But you're the ones who just tried to assassinate a human, in front of the entire Galactic Union." Silence. Then panic. He straightened with a grunt, tore the diplomatic insignia from his coat, and let it fall like a war banner at their feet. "You want war?" His voice cut the room in half. "We'll bring it." Elias Vorn entered the Galactic Union chamber exactly 90 seconds after the session had started. That wasn't a misstep. That was intent broadcast in the language of dominance. Eyes turned, some narrowed, some wide. They had expected Earth to beg. Instead, Earth sent a soldier in a diplomat's coat, scuffed, creased, and unapologetically stained with time. He walked like a man used to airstrikes interrupting briefings. His boots tapped once on the obsidian floor, clean, sharp, not rushed. The rest of the delegates, from species with feathers, scales, translucent membranes, or pulsing light nodes, watched him like they were trying to gauge the weight of something dangerous they couldn't quantify. He nodded once to the council head. Sat down. No one said, "Welcome." From the upper podium, High Regent Korik Vol of the Threx Dominion began to speak. His voice was oiled glass, soothing, practiced, and strategically untrustworthy. "Let us acknowledge the presence of Earth's representative, Commander Elias Vorn," Korik purred. "The species that rose from planetary ruin faster than expected. A species whose unpredictability raises concern among more civilized races." Elias didn't blink. Didn't move. He just smiled, barely. Korik continued, "For the protection of peace and galactic order, the Threx Dominion proposes temporary stewardship over Earth's economic and technological development. A guiding hand for a turbulent neighbor." Translation: surrender without a fight. A few species murmured their approval. Others watched the exchange as one might a primed warhead, interested, but not too close. Elias stood. Slow. Precise. His voice was colder than the chamber's recycled air. "You're not worried we're turbulent," he said. "You're worried we didn't need your handholding. That we pulled ourselves out of nuclear ash and still beat your colonization timeline by 70 years. A long pause. No interpreter flickered on. The Union understood Terran Standard just fine. "You're afraid," Elias continued, "that we didn't evolve under gentle suns or docile gravity. That everything we have, we clawed out of extinction. And now you realize maybe we're not the ones who need supervision." An insectoid delegate twitched. A bioluminescent ambassador dimmed their glow. Korik's smile thinned but didn't break. "Such fire," the Threx said, adjusting his silver-braided mantle. "Which, as history tells us, often burns brightest before collapse. The Council will vote. Earth has 28 cycles to consider this proposition, or face full embargo. No trade. No tech imports. No interstellar travel authorization." Elias exhaled through his nose. The silence afterward wasn't agreement. It was anticipation. He looked Korik in the eye. "If you thought starving Earth would break us, you haven't been paying attention." Korik's pupils narrowed, slit-like, reptilian, calculating. "And if you thought we'd allow unregulated access to volatile species," he replied, "then it is not Earth, but the Union itself that is in danger." Elias didn't speak again. He simply turned and walked out, each step deliberate, silent, final. Outside the chamber, he passed through the glass corridor that overlooked Trinaxis Prime's hangar ring, ships docked like teeth in a cosmic jaw. His reflection in the glass was tired. The faint scar along his jaw tugged when he frowned. His aide, a young woman named Karu from Earth's Pacific Confederation, stepped up beside him, datapad in hand. "They're forcing the vote," she said. 28 cycles. Less than 30 Earth hours. No chance we win the count." "They're not expecting a win," Elias muttered. "They're trying to corner us into submission before the minor systems wake up to what's coming. They want you to break protocol." He nodded. They want a public outburst. Something to justify the embargo. Paint us as barbarians who can't handle diplomacy. Karoo hesitated. So what do? We make them realize, Elias said, that diplomacy isn't the absence of strength. It's restraint. And restraint runs out. Inside his private quarters, he dropped the coat onto a chair, unfastened his collar. The air scrubbers hummed. He poured a glass of water and stared at the holographic map of the Union network floating above his desk. Dozens of worlds. Billions of lives. He tapped a red node, Earth. Then 3 yellow ones. Allied systems. Then 5 in flashing orange, planets occupied, throttled, or stabilized by Threx forces. He remembered the trenches on Mars, the firestorms over Delhi, the skies of Europa raining glass during the civil wars. Earth hadn't just survived war. It was built on surviving it. They wanted Earth to play victim. But humans didn't plead for mercy. They rewrote endings. A notification pinged. Encrypted transmission. High command. Just 2 words. Authorization pending. Elias stared at it. Then at the stars beyond the glass. This wasn't diplomacy. It was theater. But Earth could write scripts too, ones that ended in fire, if necessary. The next day, Korik sent a ceremonial offering to Elias's quarters. A rare gesture. A crystalline decanter filled with shimmering blue liquid. Traditional Threx diplomacy, symbolizing respectful intent. Elias didn't drink it. Not because he feared poison, but because he knew it would be. He sent it back, untouched, with one message attached. Intent is measured by action. You already showed yours. Karoo's knuckles were white on the datapad when she entered Elias's office without knocking. 3 systems flipped overnight. The Threx dropped economic assistance packages, code for dependency traps. The Union's trending against us. Elias leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes sharp despite the fatigue setting in behind them. Name them. Yellow Prime, Ruxin, and the Fenari Enclaves. All borderline systems. They were looking for a reason to stay neutral. And the Threx gave them fear, Elias muttered. He stood and walked to the glass wall overlooking the station's inner transit ring. Alien ships drifted past, living vessels, crystalline rigs, bioengineered monstrosities. Beautiful, but designed by civilizations that had never needed to build bunkers for meteor showers or hunt in irradiated forests. We don't win this on public sentiment, he said. We win it on momentum. Karoo blinked. Momentum? Fear spreads fast, he said. But truth spreads deeper, if you cut it in at the right angle. They met in docking bay 12, well beneath the diplomatic chambers. No cameras. No press. No translators. Waiting were 3 ambassadors from minor systems. Not weak, just overlooked. The Celt, who communicated through scent and war rhythm, the Murak, all sleek lines and gliding tones, and the Solari, whose eyes seemed too large for their skulls, always blinking like they were seeing too much. None of them trusted the Union anymore. Elias offered no formalities. Just a data crystal. This is what the Threx don't want you to see. Black site labor stations. Currency siphoning models. Military placements under the guise of peacekeeping. The Solari delegate, thin fingers twitching, murmured, "This is classified. Leaked by one of your own scientists," Elias said. "And verified by 2 separate independent AIs. We don't fabricate evidence. We expose it." The Celt emitted a low pulse, disbelief laced with curiosity. Elias's tone didn't change. "You think they'll stop at us? Earth is the test case. We're the stress test. If we fall, they move on you next." Quietly. Contractually. The Murak delegate studied him with luminous eyes. "And you offer, what? Protection? You're outnumbered, embargoed, and politically isolated." Elias smiled, not warm, not cold. Just final. "We don't offer protection. We offer retaliation. If Earth goes down, we make sure the stars remember who pushed first." There was a long pause. The kind that carried the weight of futures. Then the Celt sent a impulse. Agreement. Cautious. Murak followed. Solari hesitated, then bowed slightly. 3 embers. Not yet ablaze, but enough to light the next fuse. By midday, Threx-controlled media networks broadcast exclusive footage of Terran soldiers executing alien civilians. Grainy, pixelated, and clearly falsified to anyone who looked hard, but terrifying at a glance. The broadcast looped in Union chambers before Elias arrived. Delegates hissed in disgust. Others looked toward Earth's empty seat with fear in their eyes. Then Elias entered. Slowly. Hands empty. Face unreadable. "Are you aware," he said, "that the footage you're using to justify planetary sanctions contains watermarks from a Threx entertainment archive?" The murmurs cut like static. He tapped his pad. A projection lit up the chamber wall. Same footage. Zoomed in. Corner tag. Studio Reel // do not distribute. Gasps rippled across the chamber. Elias let them sit in the shame for a moment, then spoke softly, but with surgical precision. "You tried to frame a world. A species. And you couldn't even be original about it." Korik stood. Calm. Poised. "Your accusations are noted, but you overestimate their weight. Earth's emotional instability remains a matter of record. Your ambassador's own words last session, 'We don't kneel,' speak to arrogance unbecoming of diplomacy." Elias turned fully toward him. "We said we won't kneel? Not that we don't listen. There's a difference between submission and sanity." Korik's eyes narrowed, the first crack in his polished veneer. "You should watch your tone, human. You stand on a thin thread of tolerance." "Then you should have brought scissors," Elias said flatly. The room exploded, not with noise, but tension so tight it hurt to breathe. That night, in his quarters, Elias stared at the ceremonial decanter again. Still sealed. Still glowing. Still a message. Karu walked in without speaking. She handed him a new data pad. Interceptors near Venus picked up Threx long-range communication bursts. Encrypted, but the metadata matches military coordination codes. "They're preparing for failure. They're preparing for refusal," she corrected. Elias's jaw clenched. "Same thing." He turned to the projection of Earth, spinning silently in the dark. His voice dropped. "They want us to hit back first. Give them their war. So they can say they were right all along." Karu hesitated. "Then what do we do?" "We survive their trap," he said. "Then we make it look like it was never even sprung." The next morning, he walked into the chamber and took his seat. As he sat, a thin drone delivered a single, crystal goblet. No guards. No note. Just ritual. Elias lifted the glass, held it against the light, translucent blue shimmer. Then, without blinking, he placed it down. Untouched. Korik watched, head tilted. "Waiting," Elias simply said. "You made one mistake, Regent." Korik raised a brow. "And what's that?" "You thought I'd drink something offered by a snake." He stood, turned, and left the chamber again. But this time, half the room was watching him like they were seeing something dangerous they hadn't fully understood before. Not a diplomat. Not even a soldier. A warning. The convulsions started in the spine. Elias staggered back from the diplomatic lift, gripping the rail with one hand as the other reached instinctively for his neck. His heartbeat wasn't just fast, it was chaotic, like percussion from 2 different songs. Vision blurred. The taste of copper flooded his mouth. Poison. Not metaphorical. Not political. Actual molecular sabotage, likely engineered to bypass Earth's known antitox systems. He didn't call for help. No panic, no protocol. Just a muttered, "Of course." Karu was already sprinting toward him. "Elias, what the hell's happening?" He dropped to one knee, face clenched, sweat erupting across his scalp. "Glass." They waited. "Let it look harmless." "Medic drone inbound," she said, already tapping at her wrist pad. He batted her hand aside. No drone. Threx intercept everything on station. If they see me receiving treatment, public proof Earth can't stand. Karu knelt, her voice cracking. You're dying. I've done it before, he rasped. 10 minutes later, Elias stood behind the council podium, pale as moonlight, with a slow tremor in one hand he couldn't quite hide. Every species in the chamber turned as he entered. Gasps rippled. He wasn't supposed to be conscious, let alone walking. Korik's eyes widened the tiniest degree, and then narrowed again. Elias placed both hands on the railing, steadying himself. He looked around, face hard but calm, like ice layered over a furnace. No, he said. I didn't drink the gift. You'll have to try harder next time. A silent uproar shivered through the chamber. Elias didn't stop. Earth is accused of being volatile, dangerous, emotionally compromised. So allow me to clarify. He locked eyes with the nearest holocron. We are dangerous. Because we remember where we come from. You evolved in gardens. We survived jungles that tried to eat us. We lived through famine, fire, plague, and still made it to the stars. He pointed to the footage Korik had planted last cycle. Still being reviewed. Still painting earth and shadows. You call us monsters, he said, voice rising. But you're terrified because our monsters learned to speak. And now, they sit in your councils. We don't come from peace, we forged it. Beat it into shape with blood and fire, and carried it forward ourselves. No one interrupted. Not yet. Elias's breath hitched, lungs resisting. He steadied. You think you're afraid of what humans do in war? His eyes locked with Korik. Then you've never seen what we do when you try to take peace from us. The room held its breath. Then Elias pulled a new crystal from his coat. Inserted it into the council projector. Exhibit 17, Threx Dominion Private Accounts Laundering Union Infrastructure Credits. Another flick. Exhibit 18, Covert Surveillance of Diplomatic Vessels Belonging to Non-Affiliated Species. Again. Exhibit 19, Genetic Manipulation Tests Conducted on Unregistered Civilian Colonies. One final insert. The room fell into stunned silence as a voice, the Threx Vice-Chancellor, began discussing acceptable attrition rates for biological testing on species deemed culturally stagnant. A murmur turned into full-spectrum outrage. You wanted justification for fear, Elias said. You wanted to cage the humans. What you didn't expect was that the monster you feared would arrive with evidence. Korik stood slowly, voice still slick with false calm. These are fabrications. Hysterics. Earth has always leaned toward conspiracy when faced with consequence. Elias didn't even look at him. 2 Union AI verifiers confirmed the authenticity. One of them was built by the Solari. The other by your own engineers. That broke the room. Delegates began speaking over each other, calls for suspension hearings, audits, emergency interventions. Karu leaned in from behind the podium, whispered, Do you want to push for sanctions? Elias shook his head. No. Let them stew. Let the shock settle. We'll press after the shift. She blinked. Then what now? Now? He whispered, glancing toward the vaulted ceiling. Now I let them realize they're not running the timeline anymore. An hour later, in a secluded control room buried beneath the primary spire, Elias reviewed orbital logs. 5 Terran stealth ships. Fully cloaked. Quiet. Waiting. He tapped a line of code into the comms interface. A single phrase lit the screen. Skyfall, Phase 0 confirmed. He didn't send it yet. Not yet. Instead, he turned to Karu. Get me the Murak ambassador. And Solari. Quietly. We're going to make a pre-vote pact. She tilted her head. You're going to trade favors? No, Elias said. I'm going to offer teeth. In exchange for loyalty. He took a breath, then added. You heard them today. You saw it in their eyes. Karu nodded slowly. They didn't see a victim anymore. Elias smiled. But it wasn't kind. They saw a reckoning. The emergency session was standing room only. Delegates spilled from the balconies like static around a bonfire. Not one of them dared blink too long. The chamber hadn't just shifted in mood, it had curdled. Korik Vol stood at the center, surrounded by a shell of loyalists. Calm. Dangerous. He raised both arms as if to soothe the crowd that was one breath from detonating. I ask only this, Korik said smoothly. Would a stable species do this? He gestured toward the rotating holograms above. Stealth vessels surrounding a neutral station? Diplomatic blackmail? Manufactured fear? Murmurs rose again, half agreement, half doubt. The footage from the stealth orbitals had leaked hours earlier. Trinaxis station was indeed encircled. But no attacks. No transmissions. Just silent Terran warships floating like tombstones. Korik's voice dropped. They are not here to negotiate. They are here to threaten. The humans bring war by proximity. Elias Vorn entered the chamber at that exact moment. Not through the side entrance. Through the central stair. No coat. No insignia. Just a plain black command uniform, collar undone, sleeves rolled back, left hand still visibly trembling from the poison that had almost killed him. His walk was slow. Measured. Not dramatic, inevitable. The murmuring died instantly. Korik turned. You would silence the chamber with mere presence. Is that your strength now, human? Theater? Elias didn't answer right away. He stepped into the speaker's platform and looked across the assembled chamber. No data crystal. No prepared file. Just a man who had been pushed to the edge, and found that he liked the view. You're afraid we brought warships, Elias began. But not one of you asks why they haven't fired. Not one of you questions why we're here, but not attacking. He looked directly at the camera drone circling above, knowing it streamed to 100 systems. His voice hardened. You asked if we bring war? And to that. He paused, letting the silence stretch, just enough to bite. I say this. He stepped forward, each word sharp. You backed us into a corner. You embargoed our world. You poisoned our Anva. And now you want to call us dangerous, because we refuse to collapse. He raised his voice. You want war? The chamber tensed. Elias didn't shout. He didn't need to. We'll bring it. The words detonated through the chamber like a shockwave. Some stood. Others sat frozen. A few looked to Korik for cues, but the high region had gone still, eyes unreadable, jaws set. Elias continued, slower now, quieter but more deadly. But understand this. Humanity doesn't begin wars. We bury them. You think we survived our own extinction-level stupidity to die quietly in someone else's pocket? He raised a finger and pointed at the orbital display. Those ships aren't a threat. They're a reminder. A reminder that while we begged for cooperation, while we waited for fairness, we built teeth. He reached into his uniform, withdrew a single slate, and held it up. This slate contains Earth's full retraction from all Union diplomatic protocols. Effective immediately. Gasps. Screams. Protests. Elias overrode them all with one phrase. Earth stands alone. Korik stepped forward now, voice colder than vacuum. You've just condemned your species. Elias tilted his head. Funny. I thought you did that when you sent assassins wearing diplomacy. Korik raised a hand, and 3 Threx warships outside the station dropped cloak, weapons charged, positioned for orbital dominance. You are outgunned. Elias smiled. It wasn't brave. It was patient. That's what you always think. He tapped his wrist pad once. In the void, 5 Terran ships powered up. No weapons. Just light. Electromagnetic pulses burst outward in silent waves. Targeted. Surgical. Every Threx ship flickered, then died. Lights, weapons, engines, floating corpses before anyone could react. Elias never broke eye contact. They're not here to destroy. They're here to demonstrate. A pause. Then he added, almost kindly, You escalated with fear. We escalated with proof. The chamber descended into chaos. Debates. Threats. Desperate calls to delay, to mediate. But the tone had changed. The center had shifted. The council chair attempted to restore order, voice breaking. This is unprecedented aggression. No, Elias said, quiet but firm. This is measured response. The only aggression came from those who tried to cripple a sovereign species while smiling in their face. He turned his back on the platform and began walking out. Humans didn't ask to lead, he said, not looking back. But we sure as hell won't follow those who draw knives during handshakes. Karu was waiting for him at the threshold. She didn't say a word. She handed him a new transmission, encrypted and priority marked from Earth's High Command. Elias glanced at it. Then nodded once. Draft the declaration, he said. We're not playing their game anymore. Back in his private quarters, the galaxy outside the glass seemed closer. Brighter. Alive. He sat, resting his head against the cool steel wall. A whisper to himself. They wanted a puppet. We gave them a reckoning. He tapped the comms. Skyfall Phase 1, prepare activation. Await my mark. 3 Threx warships drifted powerless in the void. Lights gone. Weapons dead. Engines silenced by targeted electromagnetic pulses so precise, they didn't even rupture life support. Just floating monuments to hubris. Inside Trinaxis Prime, the Galactic Union Council had fractured into a battlefield of language. Half the delegates shouted for sanctions against the Threx. A few still blamed Earth, clinging to ancient fears. The rest, silent, processing the realization that humanity was not only unbroken, but planning. Korik stood unmoved. His face, once smug in every motion, was carved from stone now. Your act of aggression will echo through history, human. Elias Vorn stood across from him, still in black, still steady despite the trembling hand he kept tucked into his pocket. That's the idea, he said. We're done being erased in footnotes. The council chair pounded her gavel, a sound barely heard over the chaos. This chamber will come to order. Elias didn't bother raising his voice. He spoke directly to the room, his words low, deliberate, undeniable. Let me be clear. No Union protocol was violated. No shots fired. No casualties. Those ships? He gestured toward the viewport above, where the Threx fleet floated like disabled relics. They're intact. Just muted. The same way you tried to mute us. He stepped forward. We didn't destroy anything. But you all saw what would happen if we did. A cold, collective silence answered him. Korik finally turned toward the chair. Earth must be expelled. Elias cut in immediately. Then do it. Publicly. Let every species out there watch you banish the one world that stood up to corruption with facts instead of fire. Let them see who you protect. Who you serve. He locked eyes with the Solari ambassador. Then the Murak. Then the Celt. All of them silent. But none of them looking away. Elias continued. You taught us diplomacy was for the civilized. But your version of it was a blade behind a smile. We didn't come here to play your game. We came here to expose it. He tapped his wrist pad. A new signal pinged the chamber. Broadcasting. Live. Elias's voice now streamed across hundreds of worlds. Open feed, unedited, no Union censor filters. To every species watching this transmission. To every colony trapped beneath Threx influence. To every system blackmailed into silence. You're not alone anymore. He let that settle. Then drove the knife deeper. Earth will not surrender. We will not kneel. We will not forget. And from this moment on, we will not be isolated. He turned back to the council. Withdraw your fleets from Threx protectorates within 48 hours. Or Earth invokes full Skyfall protocol. We won't disable the next ones. We'll burn them. A low hiss echoed from somewhere in the balconies. A delegate stood, slamming their hand on the rail. This is war! Elias didn't flinch. No. This is the moment after war. The one where you find out who's still standing. Hours later, the council adjourned in ruins. No vote. No ruling. Just retreat. Elias stood alone in the observatory chamber, arms crossed as Trinaxis turned slowly against the backdrop of the stars. Karoo entered quietly, datapad in hand. Confirmation just came through. Murak and Kelt Systems declared formal alliance. Solari are pending, but leaning hard. 26 smaller systems have requested direct Earth contact. Elias didn't turn around. They watched us get poisoned. Lied about. Threatened. And we didn't break. They saw backbone. No, he said softly. They saw something older. Something they forgot mattered. Karoo approached slowly. What now? He reached into his coat. Pulled out the crumpled diplomatic insignia he had torn off days ago. Held it in his hand, staring at the metal as if weighing its worth. No, he said. We build something better. Not a council of comfort. A coalition of survivors. Of fighters. Species who earn their stars instead of inheriting them. Karoo hesitated. The Threx won't stop. They'll regroup. I know, Elias said. But they'll have to fight us out in the open now. Later, alone, Elias sat in the dark of his private quarters, legs stretched, staring at the vast silence of space. No fanfare. No victory parade. Just aftermath. He tapped the comms. Skyfall Phase 2, hold. A pause. The voice on the other end responded, calm, familiar. Copy. Standing by. Elias leaned back. They had come for submission. What they got was declaration. Not made from arrogance, but from the memory of fire. From the kind of will that could not be measured in centuries, only in scars. He watched the stars. All those silent witnesses. And he smiled. Not proud. Just resolved.